Well, hello everybody. Welcome. Bonjour tout le monde. On va revenir en français vers 11 heures. Si c'est pas, on n'a pas de retard ici, là. So anyways, welcome. This is Saturday, the 23rd of March already. One more week and Easter is going to be here. But anyways, I'm sorry about the delay. I was having video problems into coming into this program, and you wouldn't have been able to see me at all. And then I kind of lost all those when I was looking for the documentation that I want to speak about today, because people need to understand Indigenous rights and in this country. So I was fortunate enough to receive a very important phone call that I think is important. And we have a lot of our municipalities are surrounded by Indigenous communities, and the fact that the Canadian government, okay, in regards to our human rights laws, almost trashed everything during the last 4 years. And a lot of people, like it was shocking to all of us to see that the rule of law is not being implemented in Canada. What is being implemented in Canada is the rule by law. Apparently we make our own laws here in Canada, and we do not follow the rule of law. And the thing is it's been a shocker, a real shocker. But is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Yeah, yes, there is one, and there's a huge one. And the thing is one of the things that is happening worldwide is the realization that a lot of our human rights have been trampled on by, the ruling class, we shall call them. And I'm just going to see here. I wasn't looking to see if anybody was in the chat there. Okay. So anyways, yes, our human rights have been trampled on everywhere. And the most notable is the one happening in Palestine this very minute. I mean, and you'd think that in this day and age that we wouldn't be going through all of this. We're supposed to be able to communicate and, come to agreements and, not end up in wars where people are being murdered. So what we've seen, and again, I'm going to reiterate this, that the people in Palestine, these are the actions of the Israeli government and those in power that placed them there illegally. Okay, and this is what we heard through the courts during the International Court of Justice presentations made by all of those countries. And the law is supposed to be the law, and international agreements are supposed to be agreements. And the how can I say, they're not supposed to, these treaties are, all of the governments are bound to them, and through international law. So there's a difference there when we talk about international law than when we talk about our national laws. So any country who sees that another country is doing something illegal, even though the country hasn't signed on to it, has the obligation to stop it or to try to stop it. And Canada is bound by that. Has always been bound by that. And the thing is at the international level, there's something in regards to our fundamental rights and principles. And this is where all of our human rights come into. And this is why Canada is already bound to all of our international human rights. Just because it only adds a couple of rights in our charter doesn't mean that they can get away with anything they want here in Canada. But that's how our lawyers have been treating this, and our justices. A few of our justices, even at the Supreme Court, have looked at, have followed international law. And that's why Justice Mosley, and I'm going to reiterate this again, Justice Mosley said that the emergency measures, Canada did not meet its requirements under emergency measures. Where is that requirement? Where does that requirement come from? International law and the rule of law. And the rule of law is international. So, trying to explain all this is kind of like, wow, Nicole, like, hello. You know, you can't just throw stuff at us and expect us to learn it right away. But the thing is it's worth repeating. And this is why I say that if you're a politician, I don't care if you're trying to become the Prime Minister of Canada, or you're sitting on the Privy Council, or you're just a municipal councillor or a mayor. You all need to understand in our international law rights, because nothing can be done. No rules can be established in this country at whatever levels you're at that overrides our human rights, and especially if you're in public health, before you can make those regulations. And I tried to explain, to our members the other night at our meetings that, and hopefully they understood. But when you're looking at public health having the right to dictate to us, well, how did that come about? Okay, that came about in 2012. Where all of a sudden they changed the Harper government, the Conservatives, changed the laws that, because only Parliament can approve laws and rules and regulations that we have to follow, where we can get fined and stuff, has to be followed by statute. It has to be a statute under regulation. So what do they do in Canada? Well, they mix up the words regulation. They give us different scenarios with it and then confuse everybody and say, oh, well, it's a regulation. Where's the statute? If it's a regulation, where's your statute? And that a statute means a law that went through the rules of Parliament, like it gets made and then gets approved by the Senate and then approved by Parliament, and it becomes law. So a lot of the stuff that happened during, these 4 years of insanity created by our previous politicians, the Conservatives and the Liberals, the two are just as bad. And this is where I'm wondering if Poilievre is going to renege on what he and the Conservatives did back in 2012. Interesting story, huh? So anyways, Justice Mosley declared that the emergency measures were, Canada did not meet the requirements, international requirements, to be able to use emergency measures. Now, the rest of the story goes that, what does the international law say about our human rights? Many cannot be derogated from. Did Canada ignore that? Oh, yeah, I did. Is the law for public health, when Notley, all that stuff happening in Alberta, and the justice said, well, the government is not supposed to interfere with what the public health determines. Well, the judge was reading the law that was created in 2012 that is actually unconstitutional and never debated. Unconstitutional because public health officials are not voted into power and they can't make regulations that are followed by statute. Was there an error made in that court case? I'm not a lawyer, but get a lawyer, ask a lawyer the question. Can public health make rules and regulations without being voted in under our legal system, under our democratic system, over Parliament? So now public health has rights over Parliament. Okay, very important to understand this. So by law, if the judge is sitting there and because the judges can only read the law and only speak about what's in front of them. Okay, they can't, even though they would know that was unconstitutional, couldn't say it. Okay, because that's not why the judge was there. So the judge had to say, well, yeah, public health was in their rights, so the government was ultra vires public health. Well, ding, 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 ding. That right right there should blow the heads off every justice, every judge in Canada, and every lawyer. Okay. As far as I know. Okay, that's my opinion. Okay, by the way. So when I speak to you on this here, I'm activating my civil and political rights to speak to, all of the population of Canada, okay, in regards to what we're going to be doing about this mess and coming up with an intervention by the people legally in order to be able to clean up this mess by politicians who do not know and lawyers and justices who have not been taught international law and what overrides our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and the fact that our Charter of Rights and Freedoms has to be implemented, and international law, at the municipal level. It starts at the municipal level, all the way up. So when we're looking at Indigenous rights in Canada, these are fundamental rights. And then in Canada, even Heritage Canada wrote a very nice document in regards to the history and why there was a confederation partnership with the Indigenous nations. They called it Confederation Partnership with the Indigenous nations right off the get-go. There's a partnership within treaties. There's a partnership within all of the natural resources that are being pulled out. It is in partnership with the Indigenous nations. So Canadians need to know this information as well. And city councillors and mayors also need to know this because the rights of the Indigenous peoples are not respected by City Hall. And they need to be respected. So we're going to make a special segment. I think we'll come back with that tomorrow. I want to make a special segment in regards to Indigenous rights in Canada. And we're going to be showing you exactly what Heritage Canada showed you. Okay? Told us. And it was also recorded in the Canada Gazette. So it's high time that if we're going to, because right now, the Indigenous nation, if we keep supporting what our governments have been doing and do nothing about it, because doing nothing about it is supporting what they're doing, okay? It doesn't mean that, I'm abstaining. No, it just means that you're doing nothing. And doing nothing doesn't get us anywhere. And this is why we need to take legal action. And our Convention of Consent is a legal action, which we have the right to do because our fundamental human rights, which include our right to civil and political rights, okay, and the right to self-determination within the human rights plus within the civil and political rights, because at the end of the day, 1960 changed everything. It didn't change the treaties, but it changed the way that we're supposed to be running our country. Since 1960, the Queen or the King should no longer be part of Canada. Why are they still there? Because we're still a colony. Okay? So until the people determine that you no longer want to be treated as a colony and to be in service to Her Majesty or His Majesty now, King Charles, because when you listen to the International Court of Justice and everything that was said in regards to the Palestinian rights, okay, the rights of the Palestinian people and the rights of the, Israeli people. I mean, both of these people are being used right now as pawns in colonialism. What have we learned? Want to get the hell out. Do you blame the Palestinians for not wanting to be ruled under imperialism? Global, and there's no other way than to actually bring in our legal rights. And this is what over 50 countries, got together and said, hey, wait a minute. The International Court of Justice has the right because Israel had no right to do that. And neither did the UK when they handed over, they made Israel the guards over Gaza. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen, because there's, they're saying, well, we're going to need to create two countries out of one. But some are saying, well, no, because the rights of the indigenous nations who were there, the indigenous peoples who were there, the Palestinians, already, when Israel was, is the whole problem started in 1967. And really, by rights, by law, 1960, the Palestinians already have the right to self-determination in that whole country, in that territory. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But, the way the international law works is both peoples have rights. You can't just wipe out the rights of one over another, and vice versa. Both the people who live there now, who have always lived there, who are, Israelis, or, what happens to them? What happens to their homes? What happens to, same as with Canada. So it was always determined that you can't just throw peoples out of a country, or to separate it. And this is why Quebec could not leave Canada. And this is why the Indigenous nations cannot separate, because it's all a patchwork. We've got 633 reserves in this country, right across Canada, and then other little ones, as a piecemeal. If you were to make a puzzle and then remove all of the pieces where the Indigenous nations are, you'd be left with a lot of holes in a lot of holes in the flag. Okay. And in the country. So, I mean, there's things that have to be considered here. And we need, as a people, both the Indigenous nations and Canadian citizens are going to be losing everything if we're not careful. We are on the verge of losing all of our rights. Now I know that Trudeau said that, he doesn't support the Liberals don't support digital ID. Well, the thing is when they see that they're getting a lot of feedback, negative feedback, then they try and change, right? Because, they need to get elected. And they will say anything to get elected. And this is why I would like to see Poilievre. Everything that he's against, he thinks that the Canadian government is the federal, the Liberal government is doing. Well, he needs to bring in a petition for the people to sign on the government website. If instead of waiting for him to get elected, that's BS. They can do it now. He can draft petitions that people can sign across Canada to stop the federal government, the Liberal government, from implementing all kinds of things. Why are they not doing it? Any MP can bring it in. Any, federal minister can bring it in, or parliamentarian can bring it in. So what are they waiting for? We'll wait till it's election time. BS. So hi, Fred. And by the way, hello, everybody. I forgot to, that are listening. And it's time to bring in, I would like to see every Canadian citizen, okay, because take out their superpowers. What's your superpower? Common sense. Because right now we see that common sense no longer prevails in this country. They're making people hate each other, fight against each other. And then they're creating laws, this one here, the Attorney General Arif Virani yesterday said the internet frankly terrifies me. Virani defended a federal censorship bill, even Liberal MPs questioned as far-reaching. So you have a Minister of Justice who is also the Attorney General. Wears a lot of hats, right? Imposing his own personal beliefs, overriding all of our human rights, international human rights and national human rights. I mean, I thought David Lametti was a dipstick, okay? and that he went way beyond he was supposed to. And there's supposed to be. I'm going to give you. I have to raise my hat off to Jody Raybould, because if you want to understand what the Attorney General / Minister of Justice, what their job is, you need to listen to this. Okay, now who is spamming here? Hang on here. I'm just getting a lot of spam here. Okay, it's not spam. Okay, just double checking. But the thing is he has Adif Varani has a job to do. So did David Lametti, and they both dropped the ball. And the thing is they're the ones who are going to decide who's going to get charged. But Jody Raybould, okay, I went toe to toe, okay, and saying that back in the filings that I had filed before, and even a moratorium stating that the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice have to be, yes, that shouldn't be the same person, and they have to be at arm's length from the government, because the justice system is separate from Parliament. However, Parliament is supposed to just ask, can we draft this law? And then the Minister of Justice / Attorney General is supposed to say, oh, you can't do that. David Lametti mentioning that, oh, we need to send the military at Parliament during the convoy. Excuse me? Somebody bitch slap him for me. And I have no problem saying that, because he needs to get his mind into gear here. He's supposed to be a lawyer. He's supposed to understand law. What the hell is he doing being a lawyer if he, making stupid comments and then bringing in the emergency measures when the Canadian government had no power to bring in emergency measures? So all of these things, and then what does Indigenous rights have to do with this? They have to be upheld from municipal all the way to national. And then our human rights, because the Indigenous nations as well, don't forget, the Indigenous nations as well, even though they had customs, they still have to honor human rights, even within their own people. That's what the human rights did for all of us in 1960. Nobody's forgotten. And nobody's supposed to be mistreated anywhere on this planet. Why are we having wars? There's one that's behind all of the wars we've had since World War II and even before that. The United States, the ones paying, the ones who have planted politicians in governments worldwide to manipulate everybody. Now it's up to we the people to change that. The Indigenous nations will only have justice once they are fully recognized by everybody. And it starts with our municipalities and us, because we need each other. They need us, we need them. In Canada, we have a partnership, confederate, and that's the proof. I mean, I've always been saying, and we should not have a constitution that doesn't recognize the two peoples in the country unless it's within a partnership. Okay? So we have the right to replace that king or queen in all of our documents. That should have changed in 1960, for sure. For sure. So we need to get rid of Charles in our constitution and place both Canadian citizens and the Indigenous peoples as equal partners, because it was also recognized by Canada itself, an arm of the Canadian government. And throughout history, even in the United States, they recognized Canada as being a partnership with Indigenous nations as well as they did. Okay, but it's only by politicians ignoring the law and having people who are not interested in politics not paying attention. Politics is important to every single human being on this planet. Why? Politics determine what price you're going to pay for milk, how much you're going to have money left in your pockets to feed your families. Do we own our natural resources in Canada? No, we don't. We're supposed to. But the Canadian government took that over, and they do what they want with them. And they give it to their buddies who support their political aspirations. So who has more power when you support a political party? We the people, or the people funding their coffers? Who are they going to listen to? Us? Or are they going to listen to the one who says, I'm not going to give you another $1 million until you do this for me? Okay? That's the reality. So now where does common sense come into this? But you and I and everybody across Canada stands up for what's ours, which is all of the natural resources in Canada. Clean up the mess that they've made within the laws, because in reality, public health is not ultra vires. I mean, the government, the provincial government in Alberta is not ultra vires public health, according to what I see of what the law would be when explained to me. And because the only ones who can make regulations, the real definition of regulations in Canada, has to be followed by a statute, approved by Parliament or by the Alberta legislature. Public health deciding on their own because the thing is the law that was created by the Conservatives in 2012 that tied us by the belly button to the WHO under public health illegally is the Conservatives. Think about that. Think about it. Now, do you think the Conservatives are going to help us when they allowed public health to take over the reins and to make rules and regulations during a pandemic or whatever? Whatever they deem, because they're supposed to be the experts, but they're not elected anywhere in Canada. And then they could go at the international level at the WHO, okay, the World Health Organization, and make decisions for us and come back to Canada and implement them, whether you like it or not, without a statute being made. Because when there's a statute being made, they also have to publish it in the Canada Gazette. And then somebody decided, well, in certain circumstances, we don't need to publish in the Gazette. Well, anyways, tomorrow, at about, I would say again, maybe 11 a.m. instead of 10 a.m., I would like to do a special presentation to use in regards to the Indigenous rights in Canada that will shock you. But at the same time, can make a whole world of difference of what transpires in this country, where we can respect each other, respect the Indigenous nations, respect the peoples that were brought in here under false pretenses here in Canada, and stop the insanity that our governments have created, because they created this. Don't blame don't blame Trudeau. It's all of them over the years. It's an accumulation of political will that was transplanted to Canadian citizens against our will for globalization and digital ID and all of these things. Well, Pierre Poilievre can put his money where his mouth is, launch a petition, e-petition online, make sure every Canadian citizen has it, because he has that power, being a political, they can send a letter to every single Canadian citizen to sign this. And he doesn't have to wait till the election comes around. So we need your help. We need your help to become a CPU member. We need your help to also sign your Citizens Convention of Consent. We need your help in helping us pressure from City Hall in your communities all the way to the federal government, provincial and federal governments, to abide by the law, as well as the justice system. Mr. Arif Virani, I'm sorry, but if you think that you're going to implement, you're going to ban, you're going to create a Bill C-63 and act to enact the Online Harms Act, you better think twice, because even some of the parliamentarians already know that can't do. And even online, go back to a letter that I've sent to all the senators in regards to the other bills. You cannot touch online. We have the right. Our rights are protected even online. So you better research that. Because if you are not competent enough to be the Attorney General of Canada and the Minister of Justice, I would absolutely love to see you nominate somebody who has more capabilities. Because obviously, if you think that because your personal feelings, you can come and create laws against all of us and online, you need to go back to school. And, I'm sorry, but so do most of our lawyers and justices. You need to take an international law course and see that Canada is bound by these international laws. And even if Canada says, well, but we need to take time to create these laws. Well, you didn't have over 40 years. You only had a small amount of time. And Canada, and there's something called, which we're going to be covered as well, is self-executing treaties. Okay? And non-self-executing treaties. The ones that Canada has signed on to at the international level are self-executing. And that means that they're automatically embedded into our Constitution, which the judges and the lawyers can use when going to court. Canada would have been totally different if this had been, if the education of Canadian lawyers and justices would have been done properly. It has not been done properly. Who can make sure that it now happens properly? Us, we the people, because they will not want to admit that they screwed up. Do you think public health wants to admit that they're the cause behind multiple deaths in Canada? The Canadian government, all levels of the Canadian government, with their measures and everything that they imposed. How many people would end up in jail with what we're starting to know now? What international other countries are doing now. Now, the countries are rejecting mutilation of children in regards to transhumanist agendas. So, if we don't look at what's happening internationally and we only look at what's happening here, it's enough to want to, go into a depression or think ill thoughts. But when we look at what's happening now, as opposed to the last 4 years, there is hope. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, but we need to get together. And when I say unite, it's about learning the reality of what our charter says. It's not just about examining the charter itself and keeping it in the box. It's about everything that it entails and how other governments are doing things, or how the people are forcing their governments to listen to the rule of law and to implement the rule of law, because we need to do the same thing here. So it's 10:52, everybody. And the Indigenous rights in Canada go a lot further than you could even imagine. But that's a good thing, okay? It is a very, very good thing. And thank you, Kate, for contacting us and everybody who does, because, there's an issue that needs to be settled. And hopefully, together, we, the people, and the Indigenous nations will get together and clean the mess that the Canadian government has done at every level in this country and international level. So right now, the international level is starting to really push for everybody honoring human rights. And now with Canada being implicated in crimes against humanity and apartheid, and then another charge of genocide, our politicians have no immunity for however they participated in these things. Even so, in regards to that, I would like to see them actually go after Prince Charles, or in King Charles now. So you're saying Prince Charles, King Charles, because King Charles is the head of state of Canada. Even if he doesn't participate in some of the things, he's supposed to know, right? But he's supposed to know why, because Canada is also tied to the Commonwealth realm and the military and all of this. And King Charles is there as well as the president. So can King Charles get away with not being charged with crimes against humanity, apartheid, and genocide? I'd say no, according to law, from what I've read. So, will Charles be the first king in this day and age to be brought up on charges? Let's wait and see. Okay. So, bear that in mind. Okay. Because could be who knows? Could be a possibility. Maybe they're going to cover up for him. I don't know. We can't rely on that. But the more we talk about it, the more the people will realize exactly what that means to be a head of state, because then you have a responsibility to the people. Okay. And we all have a responsibility to all of the peoples in Canada, even as a citizen. And we're supposed to be a collective head of state. So we need to take our job seriously. We have the biggest corporation in Canada, the biggest business to take care of, and to make sure that business is done properly. And that falls into all of our hands. Okay. So, anyways, we need you to become a CPU member. Go to the cpu.ca website, or just put in the powershift.ca. Those all still work. Our members who are not getting any of our information, if you're not getting any of our information, it's probably because your membership has expired. And when a lot of people walked away from PayPal, your memberships will not have renewed. So now you need to go to the website and rejoin there and make a new account there. And then you'll be able to have access to our new community where we are sharing all of this wonderful information with our members. And, it's a learning experience, right? We're all learning every day. And so anyways, it makes it very interesting. It makes life a lot more fun when you can just imagine that, all these countries are trying to make sure that the law is being followed the way it's supposed to, and our human rights are protected. But does that mean that Charles can end up being charged? The UK is being charged, and so is Canada. So he's stuck on two ends. Okay. Hey, you want the title? You take the responsibility. Okay. So, anyways, bear with us. We'll come back. Je vais revenir en français là, dans à peu près 10 minutes. Puis, pour vous expliquer de quoi qu'on a parlé. So, I will be back in French in about 10 minutes. I just got to change a few things here. And sorry for the delay today. But now I got my... we're not going to leave yet. You need to listen to this. I need to show you this one here. So where do I go to share screen here? Share screen. And it's right here. Share. Oops. That's not it. Okay. Oh, right there. Okay. Now I'm just going to make sure that you guys are seeing this and you're not. So I'm going to do a share screen right here. Okay. Now I know you're seeing it, and we're going to be playing this.
Well, I feel that I'm giving him my best advice, and
hang on, I'm just going to make sure that it restarts.
Mind about this though, so I'm a bit worried.
bit worried about what?
Well, I the idea for the minister and his attorney general to be at loggerheads.
Well, I feel that I'm giving him my best advice, and if he doesn't accept that advice, then it's his prerogative to do what he wants. But I am trying to protect the Prime Minister from political interference, or perceived or otherwise.
Well, I understand that, but he doesn't have the power to do what he wants. All the tools are in your hands, so.
Okay, so then, I'm having like thoughts of like the Saturday Night Massacre here, Michael, like, to be honest with you. And I don't, this is not a great place for me to be in. I don't relish being in this place, but what I am confident of is that I've given the Prime Minister my best advice to protect him and to protect the constitutional principle of prosecutorial independence.
Okay. All right, but I'm worried about a collision then, because he's pretty firm about this. I just saw him a few hours ago, and this is really important to him. And okay, give him some advice. He doesn't want to do anything that's outside the box of what's legal or proper. But his understanding is, the DPA tool is there, and you have options that we've talked about before to ask for reasoning from the DPP. Or even to take over the prosecution of he just wants to understand more at this point why the DPA route isn't being taken up in this route. So he's thinking about bringing in somebody like Bev McLaughlin to give him advice on this, or to give you advice to make, if you want to feel more comfortable that you're not doing anything that's inappropriate or outside the frame of.
I'm 100% confident I'm doing nothing inappropriate.
Yeah. No, but would not be if you decided to use some of these tools under the law. Because I think he feels the government has to have done everything it can before we lose 9,000 jobs in a signature Canadian firm.
Right. So, I'm confident in where I'm at, and my views on SNC and the DPA haven't changed. This is a constitutional principle of prosecutorial independence that, Michael, I have to say, including this conversation, previous conversations that I've had with the Prime Minister and many other people around it, it's entirely inappropriate, and it is political interference. And the Prime Minister obviously can talk to whomever he wants, but what I am trying to do is to protect him. I can have a conversation with Beverly McLaughlin. I can call her right now. I'm just issuing the strongest warning I can possibly issue, that decisions that are made by the independent prosecutor are their decisions. We gave her and them the tools, the additional tools. I made it very clear at the cabinet table and in other places that these tools are the discretion of the prosecutor, and everybody agreed to that, and there was no guarantee that there would be a DPA in this or any other case. So we were treading on dangerous ground here, so I'm going to issue my stern warning, because I can't act in a manner, and the prosecution can't act in a manner that is not objective, that isn't independent. I can't act in a partisan way, and it can't be politically motivated. All of this screams of that. So I'm actually uncomfortable.
Execution agreement thing and SNC and so on. I wanted to pass on where the PM's at. Our intelligence from various sources is that the company is getting to a very serious point now. The board has asked consulting firms for options for the board for their next meeting, which could be selling out to somebody else, moving, various things.
Yeah.
So, and it seems to be real and not a bluff. So there's a lot of like another rising anxiety, as you can imagine, about signature firm and job loss and all that coming after the Oshawa thing and what's going on in Calgary and whatnot. So the PM wants to be able to say that he has tried everything he can, within a legitimate toolbox to try to head that off. So he's quite determined, quite firm, that he wants to know why the DPA route, which Parliament provided for, isn't being used. And I think he's going to find a way to get it done one way or another. So he's in that kind of mood, and I wanted you to be aware of that.
Okay.
Okay, I guess that was it. So, anyways, I hope you heard that. It was very low. But, anyways, it's well worth mentioning. And I want to make sure that you heard this before we left today, because I'm going to be addressing this tomorrow in a more little, specified way, that because, so she says we're supposed to be independent. And all of the attorney generals of each province supposed to be independent. Now, it's up to them to decide if they're going to take somebody to court or not. Okay. So when all of this SNC Lavalin thing happened with her, then she got demoted, right? Like she got transferred. But it has to be another part of the government, another section of the government that would actually press charges against Trudeau or whatever for interfering in politics. But what is the price, really, okay, of them interfering? They've protected themselves well against us at the national level. They are not protected at the international level. And this is the beauty of this. And that's why I mentioned that even Charles, being the head of state for Canada and, head of state for the UK, even though the jobs have been transferred, he should, as head of state, his job is to know what's going on in his name. Okay. So, surprise, surprise. What if? Yes, let's ask that question. Is Charles liable for the actions of Canada, as well as Trudeau, the entire, all of the ministers, everybody who voted to send monies to Israel and to keep this war going on against the Palestinian peoples and all of this? What happens? Well, it's going to be a very interesting year. We're still waiting on finding out what happens at the International Criminal Court of the International Court of Justice, and then whatever gets determined there. How are the countries going to proceed? Are they going to remove? Right now, the only thing stopping them is the veto powers of the United States, France, and the UK, because five countries have veto power in everything they try to do at the UN. So my suggestion or my question was, well, shouldn't the UN disqualify all the countries, vote to remove the United States and the UK and France veto power rights when dealing with things like Israel and things that where they participate themselves in illegal acts? they should lose their veto power. Okay, when they are involved personally in using the Israeli people to fight against Gazans. So the Israeli people, a lot of them didn't want to go to didn't want to have to join the military in order to get free education and whatnot, but they were suckered into living there and misled and everything. And they need to be protected as well. Both sides need to be protected. How does that done? One is a partnership like we suggest in Canada, but the thing is that could only, it's going to be hard because there's so much done there that you almost have to separate and put them into two countries. But let's make sure that if they make two countries out of Israel and Palestine, that the people rule over government the way it's supposed to, because nowhere in international law does it say. It says that the people are the owners of the country. They're the ones that can participate in every decision ever made in the country. And but the thing is they need government. But nowhere does it say that the government has final say. And this is what has transpired since 1960 to ensure that the people don't have all the power over the governing bodies, because it was the colonial imperialism that actually helped the colonization, which you're asking for your dictator to help you decolonize. And then they determine which way you're going to decolonize. So it makes absolutely no sense. But we at the CPU, the Canadian People's Union, if we can have a voice loud enough to say, hey, Palestinians in their country, Israelis in their country, and the people rule over government everywhere, we would not have wars. It would end. Because the only ones who want war are the greedy SOBs that have implanted double agents like we have in Canada under the WEF, and everywhere worldwide. They've the AIDL, the Anti-Defamation League, they actually boast having infiltrated over 100 countries. This was on their website years ago, and I should be able to have that to show you, but that's a reality. And the people of Israel are not to blame. It's those that are governing them, though, because they have brought these people to make them suffer atrocities since 1967, at least, or even since the beginning. So and use them against the people from Gaza and vice versa, the Palestinians. And so if there's going to be peace, the people need to rule over their governments, when the governments at least have veto power. So when our governments do something, they have to come to us first, and then they can proceed with whatever they're doing that affects us all. OK? So we'll be back. En français, là, je vais attendre un autre 10 minutes, je m'excuse, mais c'est important, le message est très important. Alors, s'il vous plaît, je vous vois dans 10 minutes et on revient. So, bear in mind, tomorrow, 11 a.m., I will be back in English for a more in-depth explanation and to show you the documents in regards to the Indigenous rights here in Canada, and that, yes, it's supposed to be a Confederacy partnership. So in Confederation. So it's not just one line here and there. No, there's a lot more, and city halls, all the mayors and the councillors need to understand human rights of the rights of the Indigenous peoples and their citizens, and stop doing what they're doing, and to see that the mayor's powers actually interfere in our right to democracy when we vote we vote our councillors in, and for them to ignore the balance of the councillors because Doug Ford and everybody decided that, now you only need 3 councillors or 4 councillors there for a mayor to make a decision, and never mind the rest that haven't been called in. That's illegal. That should be illegal, and that should be contested in the courts here. But again, we need your help. We can't do that. We need lawyers to be able to do that, and then we need to educate the lawyers first before they can do that. Otherwise, we're going to end up getting sued if the lawyers don't know their stuff, nor the justices. So we have a lot of work to do, people, in regards to education, knowing what the law states, what the law doesn't state, and who has the right. And we need to get public health out of our hair. And anything that they do from the WHO does not override our human rights, okay? Our fundamental human rights. And for fundamental human rights to come into play here, well, whatever they decided, the WHO will not be based on fundamental human rights, because our human rights are first and foremost. They protect us, your body, your choice, and there's lots they can't derogate from. So unless they start changing the International Bill of Rights, where all of the countries have signed on to, they can't move ahead with one document from the WHO. Do not be afraid. It could all come crashing down on them. So take care, and we'll see you tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Bye-bye. À la prochaine. Et on revient en français dans 10 minutes. Bye-bye. OK. Un instant, là. Jeez. I lost everything I had a while ago. Oh, my gosh. Okay. Now I'm going to leave you with this. Whoops, not that one. Okay, and we need your help. So we're going to finish off again with some of our housekeeping.
Attention, Canadians. Feel disconnected from our current political system? Join the Powershift to Freedom movement by the Canadian People's Union and be part of a bold vision for Canada's future. It's time to shift the political power to its rightful owners, the Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples of Canada. Dive into our history, understand the need for change, and embark on the quest for true democracy. Are you concerned about our nation's commitment to human rights and self-governance? The Powershift to Freedom aligns with vital treaties and international laws, enabling us to claim our rightful place as collective head of state. We advocate replacing our partocracy system with a true democracy to ensure your voice counts more than party interests. When our national collective civil and political rights are respected, your influence on policies will be direct and impactful. Join us on this noble struggle to make every Canadian and Indigenous peoples a meaningful participant in our future. People 15 years old and over can sign the Convention of Consent and unite for our rights in the Constitution. Ready to be part of this transformative movement? Visit thecpu.ca for more details. Embrace the change and shape our future.